Why is this the greatest shot in Pixar's filmography? With Hollywood, the most important part of a feature film is its first 15 screenplay pages. It is here where the writer not only has to set up the primary story, but also establish the overall tone and thematic ideas that the writer wants to explore through the narrative. In other words, the writer must teach the audience how to watch the film with its opening scenes. The more visual it is, the faster it is. The faster, the better. One way to do this is with a cold open. Also known as a teaser sequence, a cold open is a narrative tactic of jumping right into the story before opening credits are shown. While primarily used in television, cold opens eventually made their way to commercial film. A cold open is generally used to throw the audience into the deep end as a way to capture attention.
Pam!
For the most commercial ways of using the cold open, look no further than action movies like Baby Driver. This kind of cold open is less concerned about establishing character motivations or thematic elements of the film. Rather, it mostly serves as a method to get us excited about what will occur in the overall plot. In the same way, the cold open in The Social Network, while witty and character revealing, mostly serves as a way for the audience to get on board with the rhythm of Sorkin dialogue. It should come to no surprise that both writers of these films come primarily from television, where attention is paramount to every other artistic consideration. For my favorite cold opens, I look to Pixar. They have run the gamut on creative ways to introduce their films. For the purpose of this video essay, I will now analyze several cold opens to illustrate how Pixar has elevated cold opens to a form of filmmaking art. What is immediately fascinating about the Toy Story opening is its insistence to divorce ourselves from our expectations. Pixar knows that most animated films are two-dimensional, so by introducing two-dimensional clouds, then zooming out to reveal them as three-dimensionally painted on a child's wall, Pixar establishes the first major idea of Toy Story. Things are more than what they appear. In the case of Toy Story, the toys are just as human as the humans are. As the camera stops its zoom, it pans across several crayon-drawn boxes filled with misspellings and crudely animated renderings of doors and windows. We have left the space of the cloud wall and have entered the subjective space of the toy. This subliminally establishes the two conflicting planes that the humans and the toys exist upon. When the story shifts to the perspective of the toys, we will notice that the camera will stay close to the ground. When the story shifts back to the perspective of the humans, the camera will be placed at the level of the first frame of the film, which just so happens to be around the human hip level. In this scene, Andy plays with the toys, but the toys are within the narrative of Andy's imagination.
Now empty that safe!
Even though this is objectively Woody's story, the first character we see is none other than Mr. Potato Head, who is a child toy staple amongst baby boomers and the X generation.
Mr. Potato Bird! Mr. Potato Bird! Mr. Potato Fish!
The choice of Mr. Potato Head instead of a toy that is more immediately recognizable for children is Pixar's first gesture to reach beyond the age limit expected for animated films. Later on in this opening, the movie makes its first gesture to get kids on board by introducing the Hot Wheels loop. Even though the main characters are original characters, the referencing of recognizable toys better settles us into this three-dimensional world.
Now empty that safe! Money, money, money!
This is where the foreshadowing of the plot begins in full. Mr. Potato Head is introduced threatening Woody's friends with a fake gun. Later in the film, Buzz Lightyear threatens Woody and Woody's friends with the laser gun on his arm. In this way, Mr. Potato Head represents Buzz Lightyear. In Andy's playtime view, he is an outsider bandit out to steal money from a bank. In Woody's view, Buzz Lightyear is an outsider who is out to steal the affection of Andy and his friends. When Woody acts on his jealousy of Buzz, he becomes the villain of his friends. He becomes Mr. Potato Head.
Oh no, not my sheep! Somebody do something!
Woody's introduction is the answer to Bo Peep's desperate plea for help. This establishes his importance as a savior. He is also introduced on an elevated plane with the camera tilted up to emphasize his dominance over the other toys in the group. The next two shots show Andy pulling a string and Woody speaking his first line.
Reach for the sky!
Oh no!
No other characters in this scene have a voice box. Their voice is coming from Andy providing their dialogue. This implies that Andy prioritizes Woody primarily because he has a voice box while the others do not. This advancement as a toy makes him unique around the other ones. Until another toy with a voice box shows up. It's a very small detail, but important to point out nonetheless. Woody has a holster for a gun, but he doesn't have a gun in this scene or any of the scenes in the movie. Since the potency of men is culturally associated with aggression, this is especially relevant in the study of movies featuring cowboys.
Remington, Colt, Root, Smith Wesson.
The lack of a gun for Woody demonstrates general impotence when compared alongside Buzz Lightyear. This is emphasized in later scenes of the movie when Buzz is shown to be more combat-focused than Woody. Not only does he have a laser gun on his arm, he also has a karate chop function and believes he can fly. Andy's newfound fixation of Buzz Lightyear may also have to do with his advanced level of potency. In the Strange Things montage, this is confirmed when Andy uses Buzz's laser gun to simulate murdering Woody. The penultimate scene of this sequence sets up the toy's worst nightmare: misuse and eventual destruction. Andy disposes Mr. Potato Head by throwing him into the crib of his sister, who instantly puts him in her mouth, then bashes his head against the rail of her crib. He breaks into pieces. While presented comically, this scene directly foreshadows the character of the next-door neighbor Sid, who brings the level of violence the sister shows against toys to its most extreme.
Hit the dirt!
In Andy's eyes, Woody is the hero of every playtime, which imbues him with a level of importance and love that the other toys don't share with Andy. This is reinforced when Andy pulls Woody's string and the dialogue chosen is,
You're my favorite deputy!
Even though Woody is devoted to his other toy friends, his entire identity is founded on his relationship to Andy. When Buzz enters the picture, not only is Woody's placement in the social order threatened, but his entire existence is questioned. In less than 2 minutes, Pixar tells you everything you need to know about the characters, the narrative, and how the world works in Toy Story.
You saved the day again, Woody.
You're my favorite deputy!
You got a friend in me.
Next week, this video series will continue with an examination of a cold open that cares more about setting up the film's ideas than its overall narrative. This concludes part 1 of Pixar and the Art of the Cold Open. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. The narration was performed by Kendall Evans. The video was written and edited by William Evans. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay strong.